Hey there, folks. This is Screen Watching. My name's Dan Barrett, joined here by Simon Foster. Folks, welcome aboard. Simon, as you're well aware, and this is not going to be a surprise to you at all, you are completely aware of this in every possible way, and in no way am I just springing this on you right now.
Dan, I haven't been completely aware of anything in my life, completely aware for quite some years now, but let's go ahead with this anyway.
Yeah, so as you are completely well aware, we're in season 2 of Screen Watching. We've been up to, I think it's like episode 15 we might be doing this week, 16. It's thereabouts.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, we're up to season 2. And one thing that, and again, you're completely aware of this. This is not a surprise to you at all, but there's a subtitle for this season. And we haven't told people what the title is. And it's important that we get around to that.
All right. Okay.
So folks, I'm announcing officially, this podcast is called Screen Watching Season 2, Way of the Water.
I love it. I love it. As endorsed by Mr. James Cameron.
Indeed. Yeah.
That's great. That's a great name to do it. Yeah, we are like the blockbuster sequel that everyone hopes will be as big as the first one was. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. Because I mean, the one thing I do find on social media is just a large conversation about how season 1 of this podcast left no cultural imprint whatsoever and nobody remembers anything about it, except they know that somewhere on our podcast, Sam Worthington was in it.
Yeah, and can't remember anything else Sam Worthington had done except for our podcast. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then, of course, there was our Unobtainium special.
And those classic Na'vi moments. We had the Na'vi blooper reel that we used.
Indeed. And then there was also the Na'vi After Dark special, but the less said about that, the better, mostly because of the lawyers.
Not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover. What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Look, we said it right at the top of the show, but I'm going to say it again. This podcast, it's called Always Be Watching. No, it's not. It's called Screen Watching.
Oh, geez, you've done it again. Yeah. You're living in the past, man. You got to get with the future, man.
But also in the future, because I'll be sending out another newsletter under my Always Be Watching banner, my masthead, like within a day. So
just let me endorse Dan's newsletter. You put a great one today highlighting the tidal wave of shows that are coming our way in May and what a busy person you're going to be as the TV reviewer and what a fairly stagnant person I'm going to be as the film reviewer, because we're only just getting into some big movies now. So yeah, good newsletter, mate. Yeah,
so look, this is actually exactly what I was talking about. And I was trying to find my newsletter from this morning so I could bring up the figures so I'd be actually correct with it.
I'll get it out of my trash bin. Hang on a second.
No, I've got it right. What? Okay. So one of the things, and we're going to be talking about this in the podcast in just a short while, is the fact there is an abundance of TV. Basically, what's happened is there's a thing called the Emmy Awards. You may have heard of it.
Yep.
The Emmy Awards, the nominations for it close on May 31st. So much in the same way, so TV is different than the way it used to be. Back in the olden days, you had TV networks, which is primarily where you'd watch your TV. And the way the networks used to work is that in September, they'd start their new seasons. They'd wind down at the beginning of May. And then the Emmy Awards would have the end of nominations at the end of the month because all the shows will have wound down by then. And then they'd do their nominations, they move on.
What are the upfronts? When do they have the upfronts? Is that a different thing altogether?
The upfronts, I mean, the upfronts kind of don't really happen anymore. Like
for the advertisers, isn't it?
It is. So some upfronts are taking place roughly about now-ish. Okay. Traditionally, the way that used to happen is the season would wind down, and then like about a week and a half later, you'd find the upfronts where they start pitching the next season to advertisers and media.
This is different to the pilot season. The pilot season's a whole other thing.
Pilot season's a whole other thing, but we're just getting too far away from all of this. Okay, next we're going to be talking about Arbor Day, and that's not even a thing that we do anymore.
No, we're white after Labor Day. Go on.
No, well, that's a thing. So Labor Day in Queensland is just this coming Monday. So on Tuesday, I've got to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted your ranting.
If we're going to take a bit of a detour here, if we're talking about wearing white or not wearing white, can I tell you my favorite dirty joke from an animated series called The Critic?
Yes, okay. I think you've done this one before. You do enjoy this joke, but do tell it again.
It's one of my favorite things of all time. And I'm sure I've done this before on a podcast, but folks, every podcast is someone's new podcast, and I'll just do the same joke again next week. But my favorite joke is this. So The Critic was a Simpsons-related TV show. It was on broadcast TV, so it's supposed to be a fairly family-friendly-ish kind of a show.
It's where we get our review stink from. It's where we get our It Stinks.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Jay Sherman from The Critic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot we even do that. Okay, so there's a bit on it where he's got a sister who is a teenage girl, and she's about to have like her sweet 16th birthday.
Yeah.
And so she's of money, like she's a very wealthy teenager because her parents are very wealthy. And so she's got like a personal stylist who's there to help her guide her through like the sweet 16 party.
Yeah.
And she's being asked what she's supposed to be wearing. And she asks her whether or not if it's appropriate for her to be wearing white, because obviously white is a symbol of innocence and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway, the joke is that the girl turns around in disgust and goes, "Of course I can wear white, except for the gloves."
It's the exact same joke you told before. And it was funny then, and it's funny now, Dan.
It'll be funny the next time I do it again. So anyway, getting back to things, TV's changed in the last couple of years. Streamers have come along. Yep. Cable TV is so much more impactful than it had been. And when I talk about cable TV, I just mean HBO, really. The other cable networks have kind of dropped away at this point in terms of original, like scripted content destinations. But basically, you've got this situation now where you've got all these streamers who aren't abiding by the TV season of September through to May. Instead, they just drop TV shows whenever, except they are doing the same thing that happens in the movie industry, Simon, which is right before the Academy Awards have their nominations close. That's when you get this large glut of all the really high-end premium movies that have all the, arty names. And
it's called the qualifying period. They've got to get before a certain date. I think it's early January, maybe late December. They've got to have a capital city or a main city screening run, a minimum number of sessions, a minimum number of screens. So that's why, I don't know if it's done so much anymore, but certainly back in the old days, you'd see, Rain Man in New York and Los Angeles, other cities to follow, that sort of thing. That would be a qualifying run.
Yeah. Oh, look, it absolutely still happens.
Yeah.
But it's exactly that. But now streaming services and HBO are doing the same thing. So they've got that May 31st deadline, which means that pretty much for the last week and a half going up to the end of May, it's basically every streamer is dropping their absolute primo, big name, big premium series productions because they want to be up there for the Emmy consideration.
Wow.
So basically that means that over the next 6 weeks, for the 6 weeks leading into it, there is a glut of television. This is how many shows we're talking about, Simon. There's 60 new scripted shows dropping in just this 6-week period. Okay, plus a further 30 returning shows.
Oh my God, that's insane. Surely the industry would have the inside tact on which ones are going to play with the Emmy voters and the is it the Academy? I guess it's the Academy. And some are just using that as a marketing ploy. They get to run them for your consideration ads.
Oh, it's all marketing, but don't forget, there's such a broad swath of categories as well that they think they can get nominations for. Maybe there's just a good supporting performance in there, so they reckon they can get a nomination for that. Maybe there's a young ingenue they think might manage to break through. Maybe it's special effects. So the Obi-Wan TV series, for example, that's going to be running right now. Stranger Things. So Stranger Things is kicking off in next week, I think it is, the week after. I've got to look into that exactly, but when that happens, that's going to be split over 2 batches of episodes, and that's so that they can get nominated for this Emmy period, but also the next period as well. And that's a technique that was used by The Handmaid's Tale about 2 seasons ago, because they dropped the season right at the beginning. Right in mid-May, so they could have 3 or 4 episodes to get Elisabeth Moss her Emmy, and then a couple of weeks later get nominated for the same season, but the following period.
You are going to be so busy. How are you going to fit all these shows in? What are you going to do?
I think I'm going to quit my job.
Okay,
that's the only way that I can get around this.
Sure. No, that's understandable. Well, with what the podcast pays you, that you should be able to support the family.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, so essentially what we're going to be doing on the podcast is I'm going to focus on the 2 or 3 big things for every week, but also I'm going to try to provide as much guidance as I can to some of the other marquee shows of that week. So we're going to do that a little bit later in this podcast.
Oh, that's exciting. That's interesting. Boy, we've got a busy few weeks ahead. And from a movie point of view, we're also looking down the barrel of Top Gun Maverick. We're looking down Jurassic Dominion World, whatever that's called. There's a lot of the big summer Hollywood films starting to filter through. So I'm excited for that as well. We've got lots to talk about. We should get started.
Yeah, we really should. It's about time we talked about something on this podcast.
It stinks.
So, Simon, I thought maybe I should kick off the podcast this week.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm going to be talking a bit during the beginning here. Let's talk first maybe about the new Apple TV Plus series starring the aforementioned Elisabeth Moss. It's called Shining Girls.
Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't. We're all connected. Things change for me just like that. And then it happens again and again and again.
Elisabeth Moss has a new show. That's it. That's the review.
Good enough.
I'm only half joking, but genuine question. Can you name an actor with as strong a strike rate as Elisabeth Moss has? Boy, does she know how to pick a project. As a kid actor, which is where I first saw her, she had the good fortune of landing a semi-recurring role on David E. Kelly's Picket Fences. And here's the thing. It's a nothing role that she had, but I absolutely remember her from it. And then she goes on to have a recurring, and like she's like a 10-year-old kid.
I remember.
Young kid. And then she goes on to a recurring role in The West Wing, becomes a fan favorite character, Zoe Bartlett.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, then you've got her iconic turn in Mad Men, playing Peggy.
Yep.
She goes off to dabble a bit in some limited series called Top of the Lake. She then goes to lead The Handmaid's Tale. Every one of those shows is incredible in its own way. And now you've got Shining Girls. I went into it with the highest of expectations due to the Moss inclusion. And Simon, something pretty incredible is going to have to come along this year to unseat this as the top 5 show of the year for me. It is very good.
Wow.
So the premise of the show is this. Elisabeth Moss plays Kirby Mizraki, which is such a great TV name. She's the survivor of assault. Now, she doesn't know who the assailant was, but she knows his voice. And the incident has severe impacts on her life. She's become very insular, which has had a detrimental impact on her chosen career as a journalist. She lives with her rock pig mother, played by the great Amy Brenneman, and she has plans to move from Chicago to live with a cousin, as she explains to have an available couch. But then a serial killer returns. He's attacking and cutting up women across Chicago. Immediately, this has all the hallmarks of every serial killer film you watched in the 1990s. But think again, this show, as grounded as it is, as deeply rooted in trauma as it may be, embraces something that's quite a bit weirder.
Ooh.
So as Kirby deals with the knowledge that her attacker is back, she keeps on having episodes. Reality keeps on shifting around her. She comes back to her desk from work, only to be told that she actually works a few meters away on the other side of the office. Her pet Grendel keeps switching from being a dog to a cat. She returns home to find that she's no longer living with her mum. It's instead that guy from work, and he's her husband. Is Kirby shifting realities, or is the trauma impacting upon her memory? A journalist investigating the serial killer discovers Kirby, and together they work to find out what's going on, Kirby doing so very reluctantly. But then you've also got the serial killer. Something's going on with him as well, and the show hints at it in a very overt way in the very opening of the show. From the very first minute, you'll know who the villain is, but this isn't a whodunit. It's barely a why done it. It's a what the devil is going on done it. The show, as with practically all Apple TV Plus shows, is gorgeous to look at. These shows are designed to have clips playing in Apple stores, really showing off how great an Apple Pro screen looks. Michelle MacLaren, probably the best working director in serial television right now, directs the opening 2 episodes. Moss herself directs the next 2 episodes. And Handmaid's Tale director and former Full Frontal star, Diana Reed, she handles the final 4. Everything about the show works, but like anything that's too perfect, it doesn't necessarily feel especially special. What elevates it, though, completely is the performances. Elisabeth Moss is just fantastic in the lead role. With years of The Handmaid's Tale under her bonnet, Moss is an expert at exhibiting internalized grief on screen. It's every bit the powerhouse performance that Moss is known for, and it's that performance that absolutely drives the show. Moss surrounds herself with great talent. Amy Brenneman is fantastic, but the show stealer is Narcos actor Wagner Moura as the journalist seeking to help Kirby. He's got a wonderfully low-key performance that's also wonderfully engaging to watch. The show will be too heavy for some viewers. The scenes of violence against women can be a bit much. They're not exactly graphic, but they are traumatically realized on screen. But for other viewers, the show will nicely tick a lot of boxes. And I don't care how hacky this sounds, but The Shining Girls, it shines bright.
Wow, that is a great review, Dan Barrett. It was on my radar, but I haven't seen any of this. But in a household where Elisabeth Moss is revered, as you well know, we'll be tuning into this. This looks like and to hear that Amy Brenneman's in there, what did you call her, a rock pig? That's delightful. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this very much. Apple TV Plus, you're right, they are kicking goals with pretty much everything they put out. I think the last time you said it's a top 5 show was Pachinko, which is proving quite the success for them. So yeah, very keen to see Shining Girls.
Yeah, I'm actually really concerned that my entire top 5 is going to wind up being Apple TV Plus shows.
Yeah.
Because talking about Pachinko, talking about, what was the name of it? Slow Horses.
Yep.
Like that was just pretty incredible. I was really into that. And then we got For All Mankind in a couple of weeks' time, returning for season 3.
Quality,
and I'm
not
a
quantity.
big fan of that show.
Yeah, it's they're starting to emerge, and I think you may have written in one of your aforementioned newsletters that Apple TV, and well, I think it was also mentioned in Variety, is becoming the prestige streaming title, and a streaming platform, and we didn't see that coming a few years back when it launched.
Yeah, and as far as entertainment publications are concerned, the two premier ones are Variety and Always Be Watching.
That's what the industry says. Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so.
All right, I should start talking about Downton Abbey. Play clip.
I've come into possession of a villa in the south of France.
What villa? Start at the beginning.
Years ago, before you were born, I met a man. They spent a few days together and he gives her a house.
You never thought to turn it down?
Do I look as if I'd turned down a villa in the south of France?
Okay, as someone who has never seen a single episode of Downton Abbey, although I did see the first movie out of professional courtesy, I am, after all, a film critic. I didn't know a lot of the people in this movie, and you have to know all the people in this movie going into it to draw maximum satisfaction from it. A little bit of a backstory. I went to the 10:30 a.m. session this morning, Friday, April 29, up here in Coffs Harbour at the Birch Carroll's Coil Cinema. Quite a packed. Well, seriously, quite a packed theatre for the first day of a 10:30 session of a movie like this. There would have been 40 or 50 people in there, and that's not bad for that time of the morning.
I'm not actually joking saying that it'd be packed, because you have to think the audience for this show probably tend to err a little bit on the older side.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
I will never sort of chastise a group of teenage kids who muck up during a movie anymore, having sat in front of 7 lovely grey-haired old ladies who wanted to comment on every line of dialogue in the film, saying, "Oh, look at that, that's Lady Mockery," and "Oh, look at that, that's Lady Gazumka." Either way, so what you get is essentially 2 episodes in this. In one half of the storyline, a film company comes to the Downton Abbey home and starts shooting what turns out to be a talkie. Boy, I can't believe I'm talking like this. And it takes the some members of the household to deal with that. They have to add voices and help the actress, who's a very Cockney lass who's using her Cockney accent for the first time. The other half of the household goes to the aforementioned villa in the south of France to negotiate the sealing of that deal and the mystery that unfolds surrounding that and Maggie Smith's character from many, many years before, when she shagged a hot Frenchman. And that is essentially where we're at. The drama in the Downton Abbey films is pitched at a very tepid level. The biggest sort of dramatic moments in this happen when people walk into shot while they're shooting the movie on the lot, or one of the butlers starts to sweat too much during the French heat. But the people around me seem to absolutely lap this up. Now, you and I have spoken at length about fan service here, and we've talked about it with reference to the MCU and the DC universe and comic book films in general. We can't forget that the fan base for the Downton Abbey is very huge, and a lot of them were there this morning to watch this film and really seem to enjoy it. So to say that I'm not the target audience for this is an understatement, but I can say that it seems to please the people who are into their Downton Abbey, and it's a very handsomely made and well-acted film. So while it's not going to register too heavily with anyone outside of the Downton fandom, boy, I should have practiced saying that, I think it works well enough for those already engaged.
Yeah, so I got a media invite to this one as well, and I've not seen this TV show either, so I gave it a bit of a miss. But in my household, I've got some very big fans of Downton, so I sent my wife and my mum to go and check out Downton playing. So they went to a media screening, they got given some cupcakes and some champagne on arrival. So that was all very exciting, but they sat down, and these two, basically for the last, 7 or 8 years, it's been a bit of a Christmas tradition where they'd sit down and watch Downton together for the full season.
That's nice.
Yeah, so
they liked.
Sorry, and so I very deliberately didn't want to go along because I figured that it's going to be lost on me entirely. But the two of them could actually give me a fan response to it, and my wife, who's not really someone who goes gaga about anything, like she won't sort of talk things up too much. She doesn't get overly excited. She basically just said that, look, this is basically like they took an entire season of the show and just compressed it down to 2 hours, and she was very happy with that. My mum was very happy. they were upset they couldn't actually get some dinner beforehand because the screenings always happen at like 6:30, which is impossible if you've got a job. But anyway, whatever.
And do take your tissues along. There was a little bit of blubbering around me when certain events started to unfold towards the end of the film. I won't give anything away here for all our Downton fans out there, but it's a pretty moving moment in the life cycle of the series plotting and the characters' lives. So the stakes in this film are so small. The drama is concocted over such minute things and minute moments. It was very hard to latch onto it. I usually take popcorn in for the start of the movie. I ducked out and got popcorn in the middle of the movie, which I never do because of this one, because I figured I wasn't going to miss too much. If you've seen one well-set table, you've seen them all.
Yeah. So, look, I think it's probably a bit harsh judging it for the lack of stakes, because I think there's a lot of films that are geared towards a very similar audience that are generally sort of pretty low stakes.
Oh yeah. And this is very much one where manners and a cock of the eyebrow or a bed sheet not pulled tightly enough does have impact that ripples through the whole household. So those that are in tune with this sort of storytelling will find it entirely delightful. It's written again by Julian Fellowes, who won the Oscar for Gosford Park and who's done all the Downton Abbeys up to now. So he knows how to stay in touch with his audience. Nothing is too ambitious about this film, which is probably suits the Downton crowd just fine. So go and enjoy. Okay,
let's move on. Let's talk about a new TV series. It's called Gaslit.
I've had some disturbing news, sir. Operation Watergate. Security guards busted wide open.
The next 48 hours are going to be crucial.
I don't know how to put this. We're wondering about your wife.
Y'all going to just stand around, or you want to ask me some questions?
The biggest challenge for Gaslit is how to tell a story about Watergate that isn't the same as the abundance of TV and movies we've seen over the last 40 years. My hat's off to Gaslit. It's found a way into the story, and not only does it feel fresh and unexplored, again, what a feat, but also it's proven itself to be a damn fine TV show. The approach taken to Gaslit is by way of Martha Mitchell. She's a high-profile personality of the time. She had fallen into being an obscure trivia nose in history until the podcast Slow Burn recently did a season dedicated towards the socialites. She was married to Nixon's Attorney General John Mitchell, and Martha was known to be loose-lipped and very friendly with journalists. So when she started listening into her husband's phone calls and told journalists about what was going on re Watergate, she became a pretty big deal. Julia Roberts is cast as Martha Mitchell, and she's just fantastic in the show. It's probably just the period that it's set in and the production style, but I got a really strong Charlie Wilson's War vibe from a performance in this, and that's not a bad thing at all. This is Roberts' second TV series, her first being the really fantastic Sam Esmail-directed show Homecoming. Esmail's associated with this one too, on board as an executive producer, and Sam Esmail, probably his biggest title is Mr. Robot. But Roberts, she's now 2 for 2 in regards to her TV work. Both are great substantive shows. The weakest element of the show is her co-star. Sean Penn is covered in fat suit latex to play John Mitchell. There's nothing at all wrong with this performance, but it is buried under a ridiculous-looking latex fat suit. And at no point does the performance seem anything other than Julia Roberts performing next to a big old blob of plastic. The show, it isn't all Martha Mitchell. Also thrown into the mix are stories about the under-recognized Nixon attorney turned witness, John Bean, and his soon-to-be wife, Maureen Kane. This pairing is one of the real draw cards of the show, which is anchored with some really charming performances by the aforementioned Downton Abbey's Dan Stevens. Not that Dan Stevens was aforementioned, or maybe he was, but we talked about Downton Abbey just then in a previous review. And also Glow star Betty Gilpin. And then there's a really bonkers performance by Homecoming co-star Shea Wiggum, who plays Watergate scandal chief architect G. Gordon Liddy. Ultimately, this is a fairly safe and by-the-book style of adaptation. You'll find strong performances, well-crafted scripting, and it's a solid to great production all around. I'm not sure how much you want to tell your friends to watch it, but it's a worthy addition to your TV watch list.
I may have mentioned this before, but the Watergate shenanigans, I was a huge sort of aficionado of. I'm someone who absorbed all of that. One of my favorite films is All the President's Men. One of my favorite books is All the President's Men. For Christmas a couple of years ago, my wife gave me a house brick book all about the intricacies of the Watergate break-in, which I loved it. I'm almost halfway through. And the release of Gaslight was a big deal. in this household, certainly for me. And I thought it was terrific. Everything you said about the performances, especially Dan Stevens, who sort of is the focus of these of the first few moments of the show. He's terrific. It's got a little bit of an Adam McKay-ism about it. It's kind of a jaunty comedic. No, it is. It has. It's got that sort of slightly off kilter.
I think there's an expectation now that when you talk about an Adam McKay style thing, you're expecting a lot of wall breakings and that sort of thing. That's not really the case at all.
No, not there, but in the dialogue and in the jaunty banter and certainly in the way that Gordon Liddy is portrayed by Shea Wiggum, there's a comedic bent to it that comes through. Not laugh out loud, hilarious, funny, but I guess the point is to make these people who tried to pull off this ridiculous scheme of the president's to be as, insane, as ridiculous as possible. And that certainly works. So I'm in after the one episode that we've both seen. I think it was, I found it really, really entertaining.
Yeah. You'd agree though, it's not amazing television, but it just kind of does what it does remarkably well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right.
Shall we move on to the new doco? It's called ITHAKA, which I thought you reviewed last week because I just remember saying ITHAKA. But I think that you just mentioned it.
I'm attempting, in my own modest way, to get Julian out of the ship.
Julian Assange is the hero of our time.
He was the darling of the left. All of a sudden, he's a puppet of Russia.
My name is John Shipton. I'm Julian Assange's father.
ITHAKA. Sorry.
This is the story of the man, John Shipton, and how he reconnected with his son, Julian Assange, while Assange was being tried for extradition in a UK court. Shipton rallied a whole lot of support for his son. This documentary features Stella Morris, who was not only Assange's attorney, but also his, at the time, fiance. And it also brings on board a whole lot of notable people who are both for and against what Assange had done. That's one of the great sort of joys of Ben Lawrence's documentary, in that it really just shows the base story is about a father trying to help his son and reconnect with him at the same time, not so much about the political bent, about the issues at hand. That certainly plays into it, and Ben Lawrence, the director, doesn't hide the fact that he, supports the notion that Assange is a hero for what he's done. This is very much a documentary as much about freedom of the press as it is about one man's journey. But there's a lot of heart in this documentary, which has been lost along the way in telling Assange's story, to do with his family, to do with his father. The upshot of this is that we get insight into an elderly man, a man who at 70-ish, 75, I think he is trying to calm his life down and make a new start for himself, but is drawn into this international sort of circus that was the extradition trials. It's put in a political context, it's put in a personal context, and this is a terrific bit of Australian documentary filmmaking.
Yeah. And it's playing cinemas now?
It's available online to watch. If you go to the film's website, you can actually buy it there as a download. But yes, it is in limited release as well. And it's also playing up here at the festival. Shipton and Ben Lawrence are both in town to talk about their film in the days ahead. My good wife, Fiona Williams from SBS, is doing the Q&A. So there's lots to recommend about getting along to see ITHAKA when you can. Sorry,
and you said up here, but you never actually told people where you are.
Just up here. I'm in Coffs Harbour. Hey, people, I'm still up here. Somehow I'm sweating in the middle of April. That's not just because of weight gain. I think it's actually very humid. So it's a lovely part of the world, though. We've had.
And you're there for a film festival?
I'm there for a film festival where they're screening ITHAKA in a couple of days that my wife's going to be doing the Q&A of. Yes, I'm out for the SWIFF Screenwave International Film Festival. More on that later.
Yeah, not everyone wants to hear about your sweaty cheeks.
Oh, the cheeks are the least of it.
Okay, so Simon, what I thought we'd do is talk about the other films that are playing in cinemas now to get that out of the way before we get to the main event, talking about the abundance of television to get through.
Very quickly, I normally would have seen After Yang. This is a very highly regarded science fiction themed story about a man who has to try and fix his daughter's android named Yang, and along the way sort of reconnects with his family and all with the robot's input. So after Yang has got some great reviews, I will try and see it through the week and get back to you next week on it. Also, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. This is the new film from Ryosuke Hamaguchi, who was part of the Oscar-winning team behind Drive My Car. This is another 3-hour Japanese film, but by all accounts, a beautiful piece of work. It's a 3-tiered story about a love triangle, a failed seduction, and a fateful encounter. And they're all examined in this wonderful director's new film. It's called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy in limited release.
Okay, now for the television portion.
Wow,
take some deep breaths. Let's go.
I'm going to duck out and get a pizza, so you just keep talking.
Yeah, just occupy yourself. Okay, so returning programs, we'll talk about what came out this week, and then we'll move into what we've got in the week ahead, because it's all just a whole mass of stuff to watch. Okay, so returning shows this week included Barry for season 3. There's a UK series which we don't get here in Australia, but I'm sure there's some naughty people finding it elsewhere, called Noughts and Crosses. You got Made for Love, which is an HBO Max show that streams here in Australia on Stan, and that's in season 2. And also Undone season 2, which, did you watch Undone season 1?
I love season 1. It seems like ages ago. When was that out?
It was years ago. Like, it's at least 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. No, I remember being completely won over by that first episode. It's the rotoscoped one. Oh, God, I can't remember the name of the person behind it. And it stars the young girl who's rotoscoped in it from the Alita Battle Angel film. I can't remember her name, Rosita, I think. I love the first season of Undone. It's great to see it back.
Yeah, so it's Bob Raphael Waxberg, who's the guy that created BoJack Horseman.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very different to BoJack Horseman. This is a show that, like, you refer to it as being a rotoscope show. So this is a thing where what they do is film human performances and then animate it. But the reason why you do that is for a program like this, where episodes delve into dream logic and imagination and wandering thoughts and all sorts of things that step outside of the reality of the situation, and it all blends together in a harmonious sort of a visual palette.
Richard Linklater did it beautifully in A Scanner Darkly, and he's done it again in his most recent film.
Waking Life is probably the one that's most...
Waking Life, yeah, absolutely, sure. And again in the recent Netflix release, Apollo 10.5, which is, I haven't seen yet either. But yeah, no, rotoscope, if it's, it opens up the storytelling possibilities just incredibly. So Undone's a great show.
Yeah, and even if you're like not an animation person, like, this is well worth your time.
You're an idiot. Yep, keep going.
Yeah. So that's season 2, which I haven't had the chance to watch yet, because that's the sort of show where you kind of just want to lock yourself away for a little bit and give you some space with it. As I mentioned, you got Shining Girls, which drops today on Apple TV+. Last week on the show, I reviewed We Own the City, which is the new David Simon HBO series. That's exceptionally good. You got Gaslit, which I reviewed on this episode. Also dropping on Stan this week was Billy the Kid, which this is a series. I don't remember how many parts it is. Essentially, it just takes the Billy the Kid story, but what happened before the story began. So you start with him as a young child and go through it all. I'm not sure there's that much drama potential to that, but whatever.
He's younger than Billy the Kid. He's already the kid. How much younger did he get?
Well, Billy the Kid was a teenage man. It wasn't when he was a kid.
Maybe there's something in this show for me. I obviously don't know as much about Billy the Kid as I thought I did.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's like him as a prepubescent kid. I think it's just him as a younger teenager and then becomes the slightly older teenager.
It's Billy the Kid, the Wonder Years. Yeah.
Pretty much. Something that's worth a look that I think a lot of people will have maybe already checked out, but will have certainly heard of, is the adaptation of The Men Who Fell to Earth. Now, you're not across this, Simon?
I'm across it. Definitely haven't seen it. In fact, haven't even seen a trailer for it. I think it's got Chiwetel Ejiofor in it, if I recall, but I don't know anything else about it.
So it's got Chiwetel's in it, Naomi Harris is in it, Bill Nye's in it. This is an amazing production. Basically, it's streaming now on Paramount Plus. It's a Showtime series from the US. And you're right, it has been a very quiet release. Basically, this is based on the book that the Bowie film of the same name was also based on. The premise of it is that you got an alien who arrives on Earth. He's concerned that his planet's about to be wiped out, and he's looking for a solution from Earth to take back home. Anyway, basically, he arrives. He can't really speak or act as the humans do, but it's about him learning how to become a human. And you know that he does, because the opening scene is him doing like a TED talk sort of a performance on stage.
You know, I run a Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival. You know, I'm meant to have some sort of insight as to what's going on in the world of science fiction, and I have not picked up on this at all, which is probably on me. But come on, guys, do a bit of promotion.
Yeah. Now, I will say for this one, interest in it's going to vary. I think some people get very frustrated by it. Pretty much find the dividing lines between those who didn't really have a problem with Cole McLaughlin's turn in the Twin Peaks revival series and those that were kind of okay with it.
I'm certainly okay with it, yeah. Okay.
It's very much a performance very similar to that Cole McLaughlin.
I'm down. That sounds good to me.
There's the HBO Max show The Baby, which I haven't seen. I've heard some fairly mixed reviews on. There's 10%, which is the UK adaptation of Call My Agents. Reviews on this one have been pretty tepid. Pretty much the overall thought, and this is pretty widespread for most remakes, is why did they bother?
Yes, and I read the Variety one this morning that said exactly that.
Yeah. The one that I'm very keen to see, but hasn't got an Australian release yet, as far as I'm aware, is Under the Banner of Heaven. This is the Andrew Garfield, Daisy Edgar Jones series. It's got something to do with like church and faith, and I've got no idea.
I think it's Mormonism. I think it's and yeah,
Salt Lake City. So they
are two of the sort of most interesting people working in front of the camera at the moment. Daisy Edgar Jones from the Disney Plus movie, what was that called? Fresh a couple of weeks ago, yeah, which was a terrific thing. And Andrew Garfield,
probably more notably Normal People, which was the real breakout.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And Garfield can do no wrong. So, yeah, we're all very excited.
Oh, look, absolutely. So this is one, it's an FX series. So you're probably going to find it crop up on Disney Plus, but Disney Plus hasn't been particularly great at letting people know when things are actually going to turn up. And by that, I mean, haven't been great at letting me know.
You haven't been watching sides of buses that drives by and stuff like that?
No, the thing is, like, I've sent a number of emails to them, but there's only so many emails you can send before it gets pathetic.
I hate that.
I kind of feel I reached that point.
And they should get back to you. It's just common courtesy. You're trying to promote their stuff anyway. Don't get me started on that.
Exactly.
Are all these shows coming out on TV this week, or in the week ahead, or the month ahead?
This is just the week that, like, we're not even finished for this week yet, Simon.
Good Lord.
We've got The 7 Lives of Lee, which is I think it's a French series. And it's about a girl who wakes up in the 90s and body swaps 7 times as she tries to solve the mystery of a guy's death and prevent it.
Wow.
And then one that I'm particularly interested in is an animated kids series. It's called Samurai Rabbit, The Usagi Chronicles. And
yes, it is. I don't know anything about it. That's a great name for a show.
Okay, so this is based on a comic book from the mid-'80s. It was an independent comic book called Usagi Yojimbo. And this was a comic that obviously takes its inspiration from samurai stories like the film Yojimbo. Sure. But it's about a bunny rabbit style creature of whom is involved in samurai related.
Right, folks. He just said bunny rabbit.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is that this happened to come around roughly at about the same time as some guys launched the little thing called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, right.
So in the very early days of the Ninja Turtles, they used to do regular crossovers with Usagi Yojimbo. And so they've got like this weird shared lineage. But for some reason, Usagi Yojimbo never really got much of a look in terms of adaptations and the like. But here we are in 2022. Netflix finally has a screen representation of Usagi Yojimbo, which is
very excited.
Well, I've never even really read the comics that much, but I've always been interested in reading the comics.
Okay, all right. I'm down. Yeah. That sounds good. Interesting.
This isn't strictly the comic book series. This is a version of this comic, but based in the far future that references the comic. So it's not even a strict adaptation, but it's just interesting that it's happening.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know when we're going to watch all these great new shows. Television, you've done it to me again.
In the week ahead, Simon. In the week ahead, what have we got here? Sorry, I'm just going through. Season 3 of animated series Duncanville. What else have we got here? So I'm just scrolling through a list that's not as complete as it should be.
Now, are we getting these day and date as US, or are these holdovers? I mean, are all these part of the Emmy push that you mentioned at the top of the show?
I mean, they're all part of the Emmy push.
Yeah. Wow.
And none of the holdovers that I'm talking about. This is part of the 60 new series and 20 returning shows. Returning season 2 of Tehran, which is an Apple TV Plus show. I got the return of Girls 5 Ever, and that's going to be on next Friday. And then also next Friday is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is a highly anticipated series.
So much going on. Yeah, Star Trek, what did you call it? Strange New Worlds?
Yeah. So this is
a lot of buzz about that.
Captain of the Enterprise before Kirk.
Right. That was,
and a lot of the people from Star Trek original series you'll find as characters in this. So Spock's in it, Uhura's in it.
I think it was Captain Fufkin. Was it Artie Fufkin?
Captain Pike.
Captain Pike, of course was. Little Spinal Tap reference there. Wow, well, that's a lot.
It is. And there's more. I just don't have it all listed in front of me here.
Well, we'll catch up with that in podcast future. Very busy time for television watchers everywhere. We'll keep you up to date on when and where all of those are dropping.
And just keep in mind, TV's not like movies, Simon. You're like, you see the movie, you're done with it. Oh, it's been a busy week. Wow.
Yeah.
All these shows continue. So they're going to be adding more and more shows over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And you're going to have to add more and more weekly installments of these programs you're watching.
Yeah, but you don't have to go out and pay for parking or sit with people to watch these TV shows. That's my sacrifice, Dan. My sacrifice.
Once again, we find out that TV rules and movies drool.
Oh, here we go.
So, Simon Foster, I believe that you're sweating out of God knows what orifices. Why is this happening? Where are you? Tell us about it.
Okay, this is the official screen watching middle bit. It's been handed over to me to bring you Simon's SWIFF Adventures. The SWIFF of the title there is the Screenwave International Film Festival. It is in its ... year up here in Coffs Harbour. I think about 8th or 9th from memory. I've been to the last 5, maybe 6. Dave and Kate, who run the festival up here, they're huge fans of me. They love me, and they get me up every year with a small per diem to buy a loaf of bread every day and feed myself between screenings. So it has been a very, very busy time up here. Some of the hit movies that I've been able to watch, and I'm actually working from the program because I've got a bit of that film festival blur about my head at the moment, so I had to write some of these down. First night I was here, they had a remastered version of Basic Instinct. They're running a whole Paul Verhoeven retrospective up here. Fresh off the bat was Basic Instinct, which I haven't seen since it played at the cinemas all those years ago, 1993.
That was supposed to get a big screen release, like a mainstream release, and it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. They did a full remaster of it, which is what the DCP up here, the DCP being the screening tool they use up in cinemas nowadays, what that was struck from, and it looked beautiful and sounded beautiful on the screen. And yeah, you're right. It was meant to get a big sort of push, I guess, for some kind of anniversary event, but in the end, it just became a big Blu-ray release. So that was unfortunate. So that was great to see that on the big screen. The Verhoeven Fest up here, they're showing, they have shown RoboCop. They'll be showing Starship Troopers. They had Benedetta, his last film. They've got Flesh and Blood, which unfortunately I won't be here for. That was the one that starred Tom Burlinson and Jack Thompson in medieval Scandinavia. It's the Northman for people who really want to see a great sort of Viking movie. That's coming up in a few days' time. This is one that'll be of interest to you. I saw a documentary up here called Television Event. This is the documentary about the making of and the impact of The Day After, the nuclear war drama that ABC commissioned as one of their movies of the week back in the early 80s, and how it just changed so many lives and had such an impact on American society and international society because it was released theatrically. Television Event is this look, director Jeff Daniels look at the impact of it over the years, and it's a terrific documentary. Also up here was a film I saw called Undine, which is a German film starring the beautiful Paula Deer. My description of it is if David Cronenberg had directed Splash. Remember the old Tom Hanks mermaid movie? It's kind of like about a water... Yeah, it's kind of like about a water sprite who gets angry when she's rejected from a lover. And so it's kind of a love story, but then it takes some very dark turns towards the end, and I absolutely loved it. So SWIFF is very much an international film festival. They show great support for local Australian-made stuff, but they do bring in a lot of the films from around the world. They do bring in a lot of the films that have played Sydney and Melbourne in the months prior. So I always find with SWIFF, I can put a red line through some of the year's big international film releases because they get sort of the last run of them before they head to the home video market. And I do have a big week ahead. next Wednesday, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I'll be doing my Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival trivia night. We'll be doing a full sci-fi themed team trivia event out at the Coffs Harbour Education Centre in a big auditorium there. I'm very nervous, but I'm very excited. Following that is going to be a 35th anniversary screening of Mel Brooks's Spaceballs. I always said meatballs then, again with the food. Spaceballs, which is hasn't had a cinema release for many, many years. So that should get...
Can we go back on that? Sorry, when's that playing?
Wednesday, May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you.
Yep.
So
okay, you played out that date, but then you mentioned Spaceballs, and I imagine there's lots of people going, wait, what?
Yep, that'll be after my trivia event. And then...
Sorry, Simon, let's get some details, because let's sell you some tickets here.
Okay.
Where do people get tickets for this?
It's free to come along. All you have to do is register via the SWIFF website, swiff.com.au. Go to the events drop down and you'll see a little picture of Spaceballs with the sci-fi trivia event there. Click on that, register, bring your team along, think of a funny name. I'll be asking all sorts of questions that are sci-fi themed across film and television over the last 100 years of the medium. Yeah, so this is we did it last year and it was a huge success. We've broadened out the location we're doing it on, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd love to see anyone in the area. Oh, hell, if you have to drive here, if you're going to come from Darwin or Perth, get in a car now. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's in Coffs Harbour.
Coffs Harbour at the Coffs Harbour Education Centre from 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May the 4th. And I should point out that one of our favourite films of the last few weeks, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, is closing the festival. So their commitment, the SWIFT's commitment to really imaginative, exciting international cinema continues right through to the last day. So we're very, very excited to be part of it up here. And thanks to Kate and Dave for bringing us on board again. That was the middle bit.
Hey, just on I'm just going through the schedule, because obviously I don't live in the area, so it's not really a film festival I've had a huge amount of awareness of.
Sure.
There's some really interesting films. So I mean, I'm just here going through alphabetically, and I'm up to B's and C's. But I'm looking here, I'm seeing the Fantastic Fest winner After Blue, which is reportedly a pretty interesting film.
Yep. Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, so that one's playing on May 4th, possibly competing up against your Spaceballs screening.
Won't happen. Nothing competes with that. No, it comes after us. They won't put anything else against us because it just dies if they try to take me on and my knowledge of trivia. There is a film called Spetters, which is screening on Monday, the 2nd of May at 8:30. That is one of Paul Verhoeven's very first movies. It came from an era when bawdiness was revered. It is a very risque Dutch romp, which is very close to selling out. They're a dirty bunch here in Coffs Harbour. They all got some weird stuff going on. But I'm looking forward to the film.
That, because the film that jumped out at me, which is something which I've been kind of curious about seeing, I'll admit, won Best Film at Berlinale, which was, and God, how good is this as a movie title? Bad Luck Banging, All Loony Porn.
Yeah, it's an incredible film. I saw it down in Sydney. If you head to our YouTube page, you can see my interview with the director, who opens his film with one of the most graphic bits of, I'm pretty sure it was simulated. I can't be entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it was simulated sex. So yeah, like I say, SWIFT, they're weird, man. It's just porn and subtitles up here for 2 weeks. It's great.
Okay, I'm heading down next year. That's it. Okay, Simon Foster, we're reaching the pointy end of the website, of the podcast. Sorry, I realized I was saying the phrase pointy end after what we've just been talking about, and it was all gone awry. Anyway, Simon, we wind out with a look at the week ahead.
Yes, I thought I'd have a look at some movies debuting on streaming this week. Only one sort of jumped out to me, 3 Mile Island. We mentioned the day after and the impact it had. This documentary is called Meltdown, 3 Mile Island, comes to Netflix on May 4th. This examines the near catastrophe at the 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania nuclear power plant. The man who exposed all the horrible goings on behind the scene that made it happen, and a whole lot of insider accounts of the event itself, the cover-up, so on and so forth. 3 Mile Island is just such a huge part of my memory growing up, and the threat that it posed to whole communities. in the wake of the documentary about the day after, if something like this come along, it's all nuclear all night here on, what's our podcast called? Screen Watching.
Indeed. What else cinema, Simon?
Special event cinema up your part of the world at the Goma Cinematheque, The Art of the Heist. This is their retrospective program, kicked off tonight, actually, as we speak, 29th of April through to the 26th of June. They're showing some of the best heist films ever. Thomas Crown Affair, Rafifi, De Niro in Heat, The Great Bottle Rocket, To Catch a Thief, so many more. Go to the qld.gov.au website and follow the link to where it says cinema, and you'll see all the films there.
Yeah, problem is there's 2 heist movies I expected to see as part of a program like that. Neither of them are there.
Here he comes, Mr. Half Glass Empty. Come on, which ones?
One being the 2006 Dave Mamet film called Heist.
Great film, you're right.
Yep, love that film, should have been part of it. Mm-hmm. Also, a little film called Sneakers. Not there.
That's a great film. Oh, you've got to get in touch with Goma and just sort of throw your weight around a bit to get some of these films in there.
Yeah, the conversation will go something like this. Listen here, clowns.
And their response will be security.
Yeah, pretty much.
Level 2.
My photo's already up at security. I can't get in there.
What happened
anyway, Simon, there's some TV that I wanted to address before we get into it.
Okay, sure.
So, obviously, I've talked earlier about stuff coming up. A show that I wanted to put onto people's radar is, and this is one of the most interesting TV projects of 2022, because I'm going to explain why this is more interesting than it sounds. There's a program. Simon has made fun of me a number of times in this podcast, saying that I love the program, and I'm not quite sure like why he's so obsessed with the fact that I enjoy this program. But it's called Bosch.
Oh boy!
So it's a detective show on Amazon Prime Video, a show that Simon has never watched, but would actually completely enjoy if he did watch it.
Hey boy!
But anyway, this series that ran for 7 seasons, and they brought it to an end. Okay, but it was a bit of a it wasn't really a natural ending. It was just that Amazon, who were making it, they're running it for 7 seasons, but they had a bit of an issue with this program, which is that this was one of their first productions, which meant that they hadn't launched Amazon Prime Video in a wide number of international territories when the show had launched. And so as a result, they on-sold it to a bunch of other networks. In Australia, Bosch debuts here on SBS, and then it's on Prime Video a couple of months later. Now, they want us to stop that happening. So what they did was they cancelled Bosch, and they decided to create a spin-off series, which stars Titus Welliver continuing on as Bosch, the girl that plays his daughter continuing on in the series.
What's the show called?
2 or 3 other characters also carrying over, and it's called Bosch Legacy, which I think is a terrible name for the show.
Yeah.
But the heads up I want to give people is there's 7 seasons of the show. Episode 1 of this is not a clean reboot, like a clean starting point at all. It very much covers what happened at the very end of the last season of Bosch.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen the last season of Bosch, or you kind of want to find a jumping on point to it, you might need to watch a couple of the last episodes of the last season of Bosch in order to be able to keep up thoroughly with what's happening at the beginning of the new season.
Yeah.
Now, you can watch it without that knowledge, but also it's a bit hard going.
Like Downton Abbey. It's
a little bit.
Abbey
My advice, if you're Bosch curious, just go back to the first episode, because it's a cracking fun series. But also, like, if you want us to just watch the new episodes, you could do that. But this is just my heads up saying that it's a bit of a deep end when you dive in. But we'll talk about it on the show next week.
Okay. Where can people watch that? When does it start?
So it'll be in Australia on Amazon Prime Video, and it kicks off on the like Friday, Australian.
Right. Actually, while we're just sort of randomly throwing things up, I do want to mention that on Acorn TV, which is the home of a whole lot of British crime thrillers and dramas and so on and so forth, there's a terrific show starting called Signore Volta, starring the wonderful Emilia Fox, and you will hear our interview with her at some point in the weeks ahead. It's a terrific show, starts May 2 over on Acorn TV. Get it if you don't got it.
Mimi Rogers is in a new Bosch show.
Wow.
She's always used to occasionally pop up in the other show as well. But
as in what role? Is she like a detective?
She's a lawyer that is present like throughout the run of the original, but then she's like an actual regular in the new series.
Best thing she ever did was get away from that Cruise character too. Really, career opened up for her after that.
yeah, she's really had a strong career.
This week in history. Oh, I'll start off because it's about football. The first televised FA Cup final takes place between Huddersfield Town and Preston North End on April 30, 1938. Love the FA Cup final. I used to get up at some ridiculous hours in the morning to watch it. I'm too old to do that now, but it's one of the great sporting events. 1938. Neither of those teams really figure very much in anyone's analysis of football anymore. Go ahead, Dave.
Next one as well.
Oh, yeah, I'll do this one. April 13th, 1989, critics Siskel and Ebert filmed their 500th TV movie review show. Suck it, Viola Davis. There you go. You got the middle finger on the YouTube channel and you've got me swearing at you on the podcast. Stupid.
Viola Davis, a little bit upset because critics were not so kind about her performance in The First Lady, which I believe I softballed it a little bit. I skirted around the fact that I thought her segments were maybe not necessarily the most engaging segments on that program.
Yeah. Well, let me just say a few words on this matter.
Sorry, she said that critics don't really have anything to benefit the world. So, we serve no purpose. So, for example, I could say something along the lines of, if you're going to watch The First Lady, you could maybe fast forward past all of her scenes because the best stuff's with Michelle Pfeiffer.
No one's listening, Dad. It doesn't matter if you say something like that. It doesn't matter if you say Viola Davis is an incredibly overrated actress who's never really done anything good unless she's in a movie with good people. So we could say that about Viola Davis and no one is listening. Can I just make the point that she speaks with such privilege and such stardom when she says something like that? I get at least a dozen emails a week from little independent filmmakers who beg me to post a review on Rotten Tomatoes or on their IMDb page just to get some exposure. They don't care if it's a good review. They just want some sort of analysis, some sort of acknowledgement of their film. So for Viola Davis to come out, and I bet when Viola Davis was a young actress and she was starring in off-Broadway productions and starring in little independent films, the first thing she did was race to the review columns and see if someone said something good about her. So why don't you just shut the fuck up, Viola Davis?
There we go.
Don't beat that out either.
Oh, there's no editing. That was never going to happen.
Oh, shit, that's right. We're on YouTube, aren't we? Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
May 1st, 2019. Simon, I really need to vet these before we start doing this. New York City officially names the street Sesame Street, which was the intersection of West 63rd Street and Broadway in honor of the show's 50th anniversary.
On May 4th, 1959, The 400 Blows, one of the greatest movies ever made, Francois Truffaut's masterpiece, is released.
And I'll Be There For You on May 6, 2004. Friends aired its final episode in the United States with 52.5 million viewers tuning in to say goodbye.
That's pretty good.
No, not happy birthday. No, not that. Please, no, not happy birthday.
April 30 represents...
I'm going to do this one.
Oh, you're going to do this one? Okay, you go right ahead.
I don't care about this one. It's just I want to get to the third one in your list. So do it one by one. April 30, Power of the Dog director Jane Campion and star Kirsten Dunst. They share a birthday. Not the same birth date, though, because they're quite a bit different in terms of age.
May 1st, 1982. Jamie Dornan, who was quite good in 50 Shades of Grey and pretty unwatchable in Belfast. He was born May 1st, 1982.
May 3rd, 1975. My beloved Christina Hendricks from once Mad Men was born.
She's so beautiful. May 5th, 1957. Now, here's a name many of us won't know. Lisa Eilbacher. She had a rare sort of flurry of fame back in the 80s. She started opposite Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. She was one of the cadets in An Officer and a Gentleman. She started off very early in her career as Marsha's best friend, Vicky, in the beloved The Subject Was Noses episode of The Brady Bunch. And if you go to YouTube, you can see how Lisa looked as a very young actress. She was one of my favorites of the 80s. And she hasn't done any work since the mid-90s, according to IMDb. But Lisa Eilbacher, wherever you are, we still love you.
Also, apparently she was in the CBS TV series, The Amazing Spider-Man in the 70s, playing the role of Judy Tyler.
Yeah, she worked forever. One of her early credits was on the very last episode of, I want to say, Gunsmoke. So she's done, she did heaps and heaps of television before she sort of got into movies in the 80s. And she made some good movies. They were a couple of big films, Beverly Hills Cop and Officer and a Gentleman. But yeah, she just sort of petered away. I'm going to search for her. I'm going to get her on the show. Let's go on a Lisa Eilbacher search. And I'm going to interview Lisa Eilbacher before the end of the year. You have my word, Dan.
Oh, I've got your word, sure. But sorry, I've been listening to certain actresses and your word means nothing because critics have no value.
That's very right. That's very right. Yeah, but I might get Viola Davis on the show for an interview. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? I've got a couple of things I'd like to say to Viola.
Let's sign off. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Simon Foster, this has been Screen Watching. Audience, thank you very much for listening. My name's Dan Barrett. You can find me on Twitter at the Dan Barrett. You can start your day with my free newsletter. It's called Always Be Watching, and it's located on the website http://www.alwaysbewatching.com, and it's got the big stories in TV, streaming, and film. And on Fridays, we've got the Always Be Streaming newsletter that recounts the big shows that launched that very week.
He does good work, people. You should sign up for that. Throw some cash his way. He's a good guy. I'm on the Twitter at Simon R. Foster1. You can read my words over at screen-space.net. Do visit the Screen Watching Facebook page. I try to put as much fresh content up there as I can, and check out our Screen Watching YouTube channel. In the weeks ahead, in the days ahead, actually, you'll see our interview with Aaron Wilson, the director of Little Tornadoes, a new Australian film, the Aussie director Glenn Triggs, who directed Dreams of Paper and Ink, which is premiering in Melbourne in the weeks ahead, and our interview with Amelia Fox will also be up on the YouTube channel. She's the star of Signore Volpe.
And just before we wind out, Simon, I just need to ask you a question because it was on the rundown and we just blitzed right past it. I believe during the week you watched some programming from a streaming service called Tubi, Tubi.
Yes, I did. The house we're staying in here up at Coffs Harbour has a whole screen full of apps, and I've never been to Tubi before. I found some very... It is amazing. I just went on this deep dive into the Tubi catalogue. I watched Graduation Day from 1981, which is a terrible slasher sort of ripoff. I watched Bloodbath at the House of Death, the 1984 comedy with Kenny Everett. Does not age well. Jokes that shouldn't be on screen anymore. And I watched this terrific film, which I'd never even heard of, called The Incubus, with the great John Cassavetes from 1982, which was a very creepy monster movie. It's as close as I've come to reliving the old video store experience of just sort of scanning through video covers and trying to pick something that you might like. I got to say, I became a big fan of Tubi.
Yeah, look, so here's the thing. So I'm a huge fan of Tubi. I just want to give a bit of an indication to people. So if you are a fan of some older stuff and you just sort of wonder, why hasn't that show ever cropped up on streaming? Why hasn't that movie ever turned up? Take a look at Tubi, because there's a possibility you might just find it there.
Absolutely,
so, I'm just looking at the screen here as to what it's recommending to me. For some reason, it's picking up lots of very cheap animated shows. So you got Archie's Weird Mysteries that have just cropped up, old episodes of Inspector Gadget, some Popeye cartoons. Wow. What else we got there? We got The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross, and every episode will be there. There's some Garfield and Friends. Some Three Stooges cartoons, Extreme Dinosaurs.
But the other thing that really interested me, and the other thing that I was caught by surprise, was that I expected to go to these old movies, these old horror films, and find out they were scratchy old prints taken by 30-year-old. And a lot of them are the remastered Blu-ray versions that have come from niche distributors like Kino Lorder or Blue Underground, these little companies who do re-releases of these things. So they're all in widescreen. They all look beautiful. I'm a huge fan of The Incubus. That caught me right off guard. It's a terrific monster movie.
Yeah, sorry, you cut me off right before I got to what I was actually really heading towards, which was there's some really obscure stuff on there. Things like The Greatest American Heroine, which is the TV spin-off of The Greatest American Hero.
Really? I didn't even know that lived.
It was just a pilot.
Oh, wow. I got to say, okay.
But this woman takes over the suit that was in Greatest American Hero.
Who plays her?
What was the lady's name? Faye Grant, who's the lady from V.
Yes, of course, the beautiful Faye Grant. Okay, all right, good. And she was one of the students in The Greatest American Hero.
Was she?
She was one of his class.
I can remember Nicky Cat was one of them.
Nicky Cat, Michael Paré was one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a big deal to me. Okay,
it really is. The British Whose Line Is It Anyway is on there. Tubi recently signed a big deal getting all the old Gumby TV content. So you can watch classic Gumby. And I think the 80s Gumby is on there as well.
Now, am I watching... So Tubi is available to Australian viewers. This is something you can just click onto with your local VPN, is it?
Yeah, so basically Tubi's just been this repository of just weirdo garbage and amazing stuff. All just in this big pile of Like you really have to go hunting
Yeah.
through Tubi to find like the golden
Which
heir.
is one of the great joys. Like I say, it's the old video store experience. Suddenly you come across something you didn't know you were going to rent when you walked in there, and it turns out to be great.
It's more like the JB Hi-Fi, like dodgy bin experience.
It can be. That's part of
Yeah.
the fun. That's living dangerously, living on the edge.
The Toxic Avenger, and you never know what you're going to find. Okay, it's like you got that sort of thing. But in the US, Tubi as a company has been purchased by Fox, being the Murdoch Fox company and not the parts of Fox that were sold to Disney.
Right.
And basically, as a result, they've like really invested a lot of cash into the American Tubi. So it's a lot more legitimate stuff is in the American Tubi. And like there's good and bad things that come with it. So it's like legitimate stuff, but it kind of has that same vibe as the rest of the world's Tubi, in that you never quite know what you're going to find in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm pro Tubi. Is it
Yeah.
Tubi or Tubi? How do you say it?
I always said Tubi, but it's probably Tubi. I don't know.
All
But yeah,
right.
you'll find some legitimate movies in there. You'll find a lot of really just dodgy stuff. You'll find shows that you didn't think had distribution for whatever reason that just sit in there. A whole lot of reality shows. Oh, sorry, something worth mentioning. The Dick Cavett show, the talk show from the 70s going into 80s. Like there's a whole bunch of episodes there. So you're going to see some amazing interviews from all sorts of people. But yeah, Tubi, well worth a look.
We've created a whole, is this the screen watching epilogue? Is this what happens after we've shut off the show? We now talk about something else entirely.
Pretty much. Like this part of the show is really for like the paid subscribers.
That's a paid subscriber. That's funny.
Folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week.